there's a reverence with which people talk about him that leads me to believe it's more than just hearsay.
Yeah.
Welcome on Texas football. Time for a Saturday update. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton. Question today: is there a three-headed monster emerging at running back for the University of Texas? Jerry, this episode brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll talk about them more later. But is there a three-headed monster? Is that what you're hearing? Because got to tell you, that's what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that seems to be where we're headed right now. Obviously, we don't want to count anybody out, but I do think we're 9 spring practices in now. And it's everything we're hearing. I think we're hearing the same thing, is that Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, and Derek Cooper are separating themselves. And that doesn't mean James Simon's not a really good player, but I just think we're all hearing the same thing, that there's a little separation after 9 spring practices, or a lot of separation, depending on who you trust and listen to.
Yeah, and Michael Terry in that backfield too, yep. Jeff Walker as well. They've got a number of guys, but look, let's start with Raleek Brown, because I will say this. Derek Cooper had a good scrimmage yesterday or last night. I'm told Hollywood Smothers had some nice runs as well. But Raleek Brown, again, I was told this morning, actually, that Texas thinks that if they start day one, he's most likely the starter, and he continues to make people miss, and is proving to be a better receiver even than they had perhaps contemplated. And that's a big part of the plan for him in 2026.
Yeah, for sure. I think, look, this running back room is extremely versatile. We've been talking about this. But if this is kind of a bold statement, so people will take it and run with it and said, I said this, or OTF said this, but in Raleek Brown, what if you had a more instinctive runner, maybe tougher between the tackle runner version of Jaden Blue?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be quite as good down the field as a pass catcher, but what if that's what you had? Then you have a really, really good football player. That's what I would say, because Jaden Blue wasn't your go-to guy as a runner on the interior. But if Raleek Brown ended up being the starter against Ohio State, you aren't putting him out there if he's not also a really good runner between the tackles. So I think he's showing a lot. And look, Raleek Brown was really good and had the injuries early on at USC. We actually had an injury at Arizona State. And so I think he had a fully healthy season last year, built that confidence off of it. But to your point, Bobby, I think the passing game with the running backs are going to come really all the way back on this team. And that could be Brown. That could be Smothers. That could be Derek Cooper. So I think it's going to be a really interesting combination, because they all have different strengths as runners. But I think Brown has that explosiveness and that make you miss ability that might fit really well with the other guys on this offense.
I'll add this. You talk about adding that passing game in. One of the things we've heard this spring so far is that Arch Manning, even though he's not a full participant, he is playing in pass skeleton now. He is checking the ball down quicker and giving those guys a chance to do stuff, which means that's why we're even talking about the running backs at some level, because last year they weren't really the focal point. It was Arch Manning, whether he could do it with his legs or throw deep, right? Well, a little different now with the group of running backs they have. Hollywood Smothers had another good practice yesterday, Jerry. The one thing he's had issues with at some level, we're told, is hanging on to the ball in practice. But young man rushed for near 1,000 yards at NC State last year, brings a lot of maturity. He and Brown both do to this offense. He's kind of the mix guy for them. He's not Raleek Brown in space, and he's not the big back that Derek Cooper is, but he does have a certain role on this team that he fits what Steve Sarkisian wants to do.
Yeah, and look, I would say this. I think Smothers and Cooper are competing for carries, and they're all going to play. Competing for carries because they're more similar, and Raleek Brown's different. There's versatility difference even between Smothers and Cooper, but I think those two guys are more similar in what they've been asked to do in this Texas offense than Brown versus either one of those guys. So I think that's really is going to be interesting. I think Smothers brings the consistency of vision and maximizing runs in the intermediate game. You know, the 6 to 10 yard runs. I think he's a really good maximizer of that through vision, really good feet. Has that fall forward ability. He's played a lot of football. He's carried the ball a lot. So I think that is what he's going to bring. He also caught 30-plus passes last year, but he would be asked to do that in a different way than a Raleek Brown within the offense.
Well, a lot of people have seen Raleek Brown play. They've seen Hollywood Smothers play, Jerry. What they haven't seen is Derek Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And to give you an idea, and I want to make sure people understand the level of hyperbole here, because we can say this and y'all will say, yeah, but show it to me. Completely agree. Anytime you hear of a freshman doing well, yeah, prove it, buddy. Right?
Yep.
That's what everybody wants to hear. And I think that's completely fair. The reality of it is, I asked someone this morning, Jerry, who's the one freshman, if I had to ask you, that would play on day one? Their answer, Derek Cooper, without question. He's going to find a role. I was told he's further along at this point than some big-time backs that have come through, including Cedric Baxter as a true freshman. If you remember that, he ended up starting at a Jonathan Brooks to start the year. He's on that caliber or higher at this point. So what does that really mean? Is he kind of taking maybe James Simon's reps, or is he going to, in your point of view, maybe even take some of Hollywood Smothers? The thing that I keep coming back to and keep hearing about him, and get your take. I want to get your take on this. Is that largely he's got power, but it's his quickness and speed that surprises you.
Yeah.
So it's not just he's a power back that can run through some arm tackles. Instead, he's got quickness, a little bit of make you miss, and then he's got deep speed, essentially. Yeah. And they are in love with him. We'll see whether or not he can pick up pass protection. That's been an issue that he's tried to hone down this spring training. And hanging on to the ball as well. All these running backs, Texas did not lose many fumbles a year ago. They don't want to do that this year. But my question to you is, can fans truly believe the hype, or are you still in prove it mode? Because I know you're hearing the same stuff I am.
And look, I saw him twice in high school. I went to Chaminade Madonna a couple times to see him. And the one thing I'll say about Derek Cooper, and I'm always in go prove it mode on Saturdays, right? We talk about all this stuff, but I'm always in that wheelhouse. But having seen him in person, the one thing I'll say is I think he's got football intelligence to him. We talk about 6'1" and 210, and if he was still in high school, might have ran 10.55, 10.6 this spring on the track. He's got real speed. I think he's got real football intelligence about him. And I say that, one, watching him, and two, talking. Like, his running back coach in high school was Shavers, who played running back at Auburn, is now running back coach in college, Marcus Shavers. And he talked about how smart of a football player was. Damian Jones, the coach at Chaminade Madonna, who's had Jeremiah Smith, a bunch of other guys, Kenyatta Jackson, I mean, you name it. He's got multiple pros that have played there. Said, look, the guy can play anywhere on a football field. We had Matt DeBuck on here that said he could play anywhere. He literally played wide receiver, and he was at Cardinal Gibbons before he went to Chaminade Madonna. He played linebacker. He can play anywhere on a football field. So those guys have football intelligence about them. But I think the main thing with Derek Cooper in this three-headed monster that we think is forming here is, does he have a chance to do something neither one of the other two older backs can do? And that is vertical power. Does he get vertical quicker? Because he's more of a one-cut guy and a decisive runner, and then he's got more of a trunk and frame behind that when he hits full speed. Does that give him a really good chance to differentiate himself from the other two older backs in this scheme? Because the one thing we talk about, Bobby, who's going to close games out for you? Who's going to be your red zone back? Who's going to be the guy called upon to get the toughest yard? The second and one from the goal line in a college football playoff game, who's going to be that guy? That's a question that has to be answered. But I think Derek Cooper has a chance because early as a freshman, because I think he has the natural trait that maybe those guys don't have, and maybe some of it's due to size speed combo that he has.
I think we can go even a step further with Derek Cooper than you can with a lot of guys that we hear about, and I want to be transparent here. I've I've been victim to hearing positive things about freshmen before too.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, there's a reverence with which people talk about him that leads me to believe it's more than just hearsay. They're seeing things behind the scenes that we can't see and may not even be seen on a practice field,
right?
Frankly, because if you're saying, "Hey, this guy's going to play," it'll be interesting to see. But I'll go so far as to say this. I mean, I think that there are some other good players in that running back room, but we kind of projected this and thought it might happen with Smothers and Brown and potentially Cooper when he signed. Those three coming in might move ahead of the rest of the group. It's sounding like that's the case. I wouldn't give up yet on James Simon. I wouldn't give up on Michael Terry either, but we are where we are at this point. You mentioned it, 9 practices in, and the guys we're hearing the most about are those first 3 by far. And so not a bad thing. All right, I want to say thank you to our presenting sponsor. We also have one more question I got for Jerry here. For our presenting sponsor, that is the folks over at Prize Picks. If you're watching games today, you need to be on Prize Picks. It's America's #1 sports pick app, and it's super easy to use. Thank you for being our newest long-term sponsor here. You just pick more or less on player stats and build your lineup. That's it. No complicated stuff. It makes every game way more interesting. You're not just watching. You actually have something tied to every drive, every at-bat, every possession. It's almost like fantasy football on steroids. Right now, I'm looking at a lineup where I'm taking Jaden Bradley to have more than 14.5 points plus assists because the Arizona guard has been hot lately here in the Final Four, and Michigan's Morez Johnson to have more than 5.5 rebounds based on the fact he's averaging over 6 per game in the big dance so far. That's really what it comes down to, just trusting your read on how the game is going to play out. And if you're new, here's the deal. Download the app, use code HMA, that's code HMA, play $5, and you'll get a $50 lineup instantly. Again, that's $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup when you use code HMA. Jerry, the question I want to go back to as we talk about the Texas running back group. I did some checking on Trey Weiser and how he's doing. Cedric Baxter. Trey Weiser is part of a running back tandem right now at Florida State that includes a guy that many people think is going to be tremendous, but they may be running more 2-back sets. Cedric Baxter up in Lexington, Kentucky at Kentucky. He's doing okay, but they aren't talking about him like he's the next great one up there. This 3-headed monster, we expected to improvement from Texas. The question that I still have, even with how good Brown and Cooper in particular have been, the question I still have is, are they just incrementally better in 26, or are they over the top better? And I think that's still a fair question, because I think the most talented one in the group is the freshman, and you don't know if he's ready. Like you're like ready for 20 carries a game or 15 carries. Kind of. What do you think of that?
I think they're drastically better in the passing game.
Okay.
I think we can go drastically better in the passing game because Raleek Brown is closer to a Jaden Blue as a pass catcher. They're a little different, but they're close, right?
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
And I think Smothers pretty good in the passing game. I think Derek Cooper is going to be good in the passing game too. So I think they're a lot better in that area. As the runner, and I've talked about this before, the biggest thing, there's 2 things that remain that these guys have to prove. Who's going to take the ball and do what Trey Weiser did against A&M and Oklahoma for you? Deliver in big game. I mean, that's really what it comes down. Who's going to take the bull by the horns at Texas?
You don't want just a 3-headed monster in those games. You may just want a 1.
And you have a closeout guy. Who could close out a game at Tennessee if you're up a touchdown in the 4th quarter and you have 1 drive and Tennessee has 1 timeout left and if you get 2 first downs, the game's over? Who's your guy? Because you're not going to be chucking it at that point in time. Who's the guy that's going to step up and be that, take on that role, or be your short yardage back in the red zone? Who can score a touchdown from inside the 5 for you? I think those things have to play out. So I think the biggest one, though, of that is who is going to go into the Cotton Bowl and deliver like Trey Weiser did? Go to A&M and deliver like Trey Wisner did, because those are pretty big time performances by a guy who wasn't the biggest, wasn't the strongest, and wasn't the fastest. But that dude's heart was beating out of his jersey and through his pads in those games.
Oh, he wore it on his sleeve.
Yep.
He wore that the fight on his sleeve. I agree with your assessment of Trey Wisner there. All right, look, long story short, I think Jerry and I have both heard the same things. Texas right now, 3 backs kind of separating a little.
Yes.
Does that mean it's going to end up this way?
No.
Through 15 practices or into next fall? No. But if I were a betting man, that's kind of where it looks like it's headed currently. Again, don't forget about James Simon or Michael Terry, though. Yet it is what it is. All right. Thank you again to our presenting sponsor. That's the folks over at Prize Picks. Thank you to Jerry Hamilton, as well as our friend behind the scenes, Matt Hutchison. Guys, you guys have a good weekend. Hook 'em horns.
Hey guys, Blake Monroe here from Coffee and Football. YouTube thinks that you're going to like this video right here. And if the algorithm knows ball, it's a good one. So go check it out. And then don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button.